I'm Wilson Lai, and you're listening to Deep Cut. On Deep Cut, we compare a director's most popular film with a personal favorite chosen by one of us. We also discuss that director's life and career to bring in context that helps us view their movies as they may want us to. If you're enjoying the show, please rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts to help others discover the show. Better still, you can leave a review on Apple Podcasts or comment on episodes directly on Spotify. If you'd like to share a message with us, feel free to drop us an email at hello@deepcutpod.com. You can also find us at deepcutpod.com to find links to our socials, Discord, and Patreon. Welcome to another episode in the series of interviews that I did at this year's Hong Kong International Film Festival. On today's episode, I got to chat with British experimental filmmaker and artist Ben Rivers, who was at the festival presenting his latest film, Mare's Nest. Mare's Nest is a really complex and heady film that includes a lot of children, a lot of child actors. A big part of this film is the child actors reciting this Don Delillo play, which I got to ask Ben Rivers about because I was a little clueless as to, the intention behind it. But I think it was very enlightening, this interview, and the things that I learned about how Rivers decided to work with these child actors and giving them moments of spontaneity on set was really awesome and really cool to hear about the process of this film and also compared to other films in his filmography. Without further ado, this is my interview with Ben Rivers. So I'm here with Ben Rivers, who's presenting his latest film, Mare's Nest, at this year's Hong Kong International Film Festival. Ben, welcome to Hong Kong. How does it feel being in Hong Kong presenting your film at this year's festival?
It feels great. I've shown here a number of times now, and I've never been able to make it because of timing. But I was very keen to come because, for various reasons, partly because I wanted to come and walk around Hong Kong and eat lots of food, which is quite an important part of my life. But also just, the importance of Southeast Asian cinema to me personally, and even Hong Kong cinema. Growing up watching some of those films from the 80s, it feels like a city where cinema is really important. So, it's great to bring the film here and get some people's reactions.
Yeah. How was the screening? You had it a couple days ago, right?
It was great. Yeah, it was great. I felt like the audience was very, very lively. They started asking questions immediately, which I always think is a good sign. You know. And some really good questions, some really intelligent thoughts. So felt good.
That's awesome. Let's get started talking about Mare's Nest, and I want to hear about how this project came about for you.
Well, it started initially. I was writing it during the pandemic. I was locked away like many people, as you in the countryside in Britain. And I was thinking, I was kind of moving between the countryside and London, and thinking about how tough it would be to be a child at that time, locked inside, not free. So I just thought it would be fun to start imagining a world where children were completely free, And then I came up with this idea of it being this sort of post-apocalyptic scenario where there really are no adults, and we don't know why there's no adults, but that's how they're living, and they're surviving. And there's one character who kind of navigates us through this world with no adults. And, it takes on a more, I suppose, some disturbing undertones, of course, like why are these kids all alone? But at the same time, I was trying to also think about the questions that they might ask, and also have a glimmer of hope, because I feel like we're living in a time, I don't know if people always think this, they've probably been thinking it since the Middle Ages, but I feel like we are living in a particularly bad time. There were so many reasons to think the world is just going to collapse entirely, you know, with war and climate change and genocide and all of these things. And you just think, wow, this is a really bad time. So I was trying to think beyond all of that and just to think, well, what would happen if these kids were kind of given a chance to restart in a way, kind of go back to being, you know, early humans. So the film kind of grew out of those ideas, and also finding this one act Don Delillo play, which became a kind of important sort of center point, I suppose. Something 20 minutes of these three people talking about the anxieties of living in our contemporary world.
I wonder when the Don Delillo play came into your mind, or was this really early on in your formulation process, or did it come a bit later on? And how was it, like, I mean, securing the rights, or like, how did you end up having the play in your film?
Yeah, at first I read the play, I think because a friend told me about it, and I'm a Delillo fan, so you know, I wanted to read it, and at first I read it and I thought I'd like to put it on as a play, like in London. It's not really been performed. And it was written for adults, so I was just gonna put it on as a play for adults, you know. And then, but at the same time, I was also writing this film with kids, and I thought, well, why not actually like have three kids read it?
Yeah.
And what would that do to the text? And I thought, actually, this could be really powerful. And you know, so then as soon as I'd had that idea, then I couldn't get it out of my head. So then I approached Don, who luckily I'd had some communication with before. He'd seen a couple of my previous films and written me a very nice letter.
Wow. Very nice.
Which was great. Yeah, it was really good. So to get a letter from a writer you really admire, you know, is lovely. So I wrote to him and asked if I could use it, and he gave me his blessings, and then I just had to do some, you know, paperwork with his agent, but they were very kind, and I had to pay very little.
That's great.
They understood the economy of my kind of filmmaking, you know, that it's low budget, it's independent, it's not commercial, industrial cinema. So they were really understanding of that. Yeah. So then all I had to do with the play was change the gender, because he'd written it with three men,
right? Yeah.
So yeah, I just had to change it to females, and then we spent a long time with the three actors, and they're all non-actors. They'd never really acted before, so you know, we spent a lot of time just reading the play, and they became more and more familiar with it, and they understood the heart of it. They didn't necessarily understand all the sentences, and
right?
You know, 'cause it's quite abstract and complex. That didn't really matter in a way. I thought what was important was that they understood, you know, the kind of overall meaning of it, you know, and the feeling of it.
So you didn't find it to be like essential that they knew the meaning of every single line of dialogue?
No, because I mean, I didn't know every the meaning of every line of dialogue either. You know, it's complex. You know, I'd argue that maybe Don doesn't know either. You know, some of it is very abstract, and it's deliberately absurd. Some of it, you know. So for me, it became a really important point in the film, and thinking about the film, like the play was sort of the beginning of Moon's journey, and you know, she's trying to understand the world that she's in, or what, you know, the world that's just kind of collapsed, and then everything that happens afterwards is her kind of moving away from this kind of knowledge. You know, she's kind of moved beyond everything that they think that they know, in order to restart.
And in addition to the words, the text that you have your child actors perform, they are also, in this post-apocalyptic world, they are sort of embarking or doing a lot of adult routines or actions. And I was wondering what you personally felt about like seeing that being played out in your film.
Yeah, I mean, what I wanted to do with them was give them a lot of agency and treat them like, I do feel like a lot of the time kids in films, it can be a bit patronizing.
Yes.
Sentimental. It's always about this relationship between the child world and the adult world. And I wanted to avoid all of those things and just kind of treat them like they are of age, that they're intelligent beings and they're able to survive and do kind of adult things. But at the same time, they're also children and they play and they have these kinds of rituals that children do that sometimes we don't understand, so so in the filming, obviously a lot of it is planned. You're making a film, you need to have a schedule and plan out your locations and your crew and who's going to be here, but within that I try to allow for chance and for their imaginations to be encouraged as well. So for example, all the clothes that they wear, they worked on them with the costume designer. Wow. So we did a workshop, so they were really involved in making their own clothes, just with the help and guidance of the costume person. And sometimes with Moon, I want her to maybe explore a place, like a room or some rocks.
Yes.
And I give her an in point and an out point of the shot. And then she's free to move within that, and I just let her do her own thing. And then, and we do a take like that. And then, and then we discuss it. We say, I say, I think you could have maybe done something like this. And she says, yeah, or no, And so it's not just me dictating what they do. I really wanted them to have some freedom to, feel like they're participating, collaborating.
That's great. I feel like it really comes across on screen, the really special child performances. I was wondering, by extension, do you have any favorite child performances in cinema or maybe in films that don't really have this, I don't know, juxtaposition between the child's world and the adult world that you were talking about earlier? Do you have any? Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question. I might have to think about that.
It's okay.
Yeah. Because they so often do. I mean, I think it's really hard to think of films where it is just sort of the kids doing their thing.
Yeah.
There's a experimental film called Peggy and Fred in Hell by Leslie Thornton, which I love. That's an important one. And another film called My Name is Una.
Okay.
By Gunvar Nelson. These are like black and white films from the 70s, I think. Yeah, which are really amazing.
I'll be sure to check them out.
Yeah.
So a lot of your previous films are more documentary oriented, and I was wondering what differed, like what changed in your process of filmmaking between this film and your previous, more, I guess, character portrait of real people films.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always been I've always loved fiction films, and I'm always sort of, even though I'm making films of real people in their real spaces, there's always a kind of fiction to them. I we make things up. We're making a world in a way. I'm not trying to necessarily accurately represent their world. It's sort of like even. So the film that was here last year, Bog and Clock, with Jake Williams, I'm filming Jake Williams in his place, in his house, but it's also my own construction, if you turn up there, his life doesn't look like it does in the film in a way, it's all a construction, as most films are. And so there's always been these sort of varying degrees of fiction coming in, and I think I'm now sort of moving more into like complete fiction.
Okay.
Yeah. Then it sort of gets flipped over so that I'm starting with fiction, but then allowing for sort of documentary filming within that. So like working with these kids, I mean, it's all written and made up.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I say, I'm also kind of giving them freedom to be themselves. So then it's like a documentary of kids performing.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in this kind of slippery area between fiction and documentary. And yeah, I think the next film will be even more on the fictional side. So yeah, it's a gradual move.
I think it's definitely an interesting space to place your films in. But I'm also thinking about like imagining you on set and maybe calling for multiple takes. Like, and I wonder how that affects the spontaneity or finding some sort of natural.
I think you can find. I mean, this is a great thing about working with non-professional actors is that they can be incredibly natural, even if you ask them to do a number of takes, you know. So these films that I've made, which people call documentaries, so the films I've made with Jake Williams, for example, it is all set up. I mean, I rarely film him like just as an observational shot. Everything is sort of based on me looking and thinking and deciding what to do, and then we set it up like you would with a fiction,
right?
You know, with blocking. So you're going to come out the door, you're going to go there, and then you're going to go there, do this. And I think there's a tradition of documentary filmmaking that goes way back that has done that, you know, like that has been kind of directed. And yeah, I mean, if I feel like we can do it better, then I'll ask for another take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself asking the kids for lots of takes?
Yeah, I did. I mean, the word for snow part, the clay part obviously needed multiple takes to get that right. But even when it's kind of freer stuff where they're, say, like when they're in the cave and they're really kind of playing and doing these kind of rituals amongst themselves, I still had to do kind of multiple takes sometimes because they would be doing things and I think this is great, but I think we can do it a little bit better. So let's just try that again. You do that thing that you were doing a minute ago. Just change it slightly. And they were all completely open to doing that as well. Nobody got bored. I didn't do like too many takes. I mean, it was never more than like 3 or 4 or something.
Okay, yeah.
But oftentimes with non-actors, the first take is the best. You realize when you're looking at the footage and the edit that there's something really magical about the first take, even if there might be some mistakes or something. That there's there's one moment I really like where this young girl they've just been eating around a fire, and then she sort of recites this, I don't know what it is, it's a kind of poem or something. And she just made it up herself spontaneously. I said to her, can you like imagine the future and just tell me something about the future? And it was like she went into a trance. And it's so beautiful what she says and the way she says it. And then I did a second take just for safety. Yeah. And the second take just it's sharper focus. It's a kind of better shot technically, but she didn't have the same kind of trance-like atmosphere. Yeah. So then you
still went with the first take.
I used the first take, even though it's a little bit soft on the focus.
Sometimes you got to forgive some focus for a good performance. I was wondering about this section in your film where the kids sit down and they watch a movie, and inside the movie they're playing a game with someone with a cow's or bull's head on it. I found it to be very striking and beautiful, but also, I don't know, like reflective of a lot of like silent films that I've seen. I was wondering what was your thinking behind that, and what was your intention behind that section of your film?
I think it was thinking about, I'm interested in kind of moving across time in a way, like I was saying, in a way they're going back to early human time, even though they're in the future. And then I thought if they made a film themselves, maybe they would base that on mythical time, So I started thinking about the Greek myths, and then I found this labyrinth, this stone labyrinth that a sculptor made in a quarry in Menorca. And as soon as I saw this location, I thought, okay, I need to make a version of the Minotaur. Yeah. And, the Minotaur is always, that story is always about the Minotaur as an adult who kills humans and eats them. You know, it's a really tragic character. And I just thought, oh, it could be that maybe these kids would imagine, oh, the beginnings of the life of the Minotaur.
Okay.
You know, like how sad it would be to be born as this outsider.
Yeah.
You know, and he tries to become friends, but like his horns get in the way, and you know, and then tragically he's like left alone in the labyrinth. So it's a, you know, it's almost like a little morality tale that they make. Yeah, I wanted to make it like a silent movie, like because I was sort of imagining that if they got hold of like a film camera and found some film stock, they would make a film like a silent film.
Yeah.
You know, it wouldn't be like with sync sound and everything. It would just be images.
Yeah.
So that's what because I like the idea that, you know, in the future, you know, post-apocalypse, there won't be any digital. Digital won't work anymore.
Right.
And there won't be any, you know, even, you know, hard drives will just be a box.
Yeah.
They won't mean anything. Whereas if you get hold of some film, if you get hold of a film print, you can look at it and you can see that there's images on it and you can understand like what's happening. So yeah, I think film will eventually outlive digital.
Film will outlive us all, honestly. Another striking section of your film is this black and white section where Moon travels to the past. I don't know, is that what's the name? Moon wanders into the past.
Yeah.
And it is striking to me, not just because of the black and white, but also when Moon like starts wandering through this building, she's coming into contact with adults who are frozen in time. I am a little perplexed, but also was just like glued to what I was seeing on the screen. I guess what inspired that, and I guess how did you work with, I guess, the adult actors to like make them sort of assume these poses that are kind of horrifying in a way?
Yeah, you know, when you're writing, you just come up with ideas and you just got to follow them through. And I like this idea that at a certain point she would go into like the underworld, you know, some kind of weird underworld, and it would be very low lit, and that she would see, you know, these kind of remnants of the world that was before, that they no longer really see. You know, a lot of sort of post-apocalyptic films, they have the same kind of images, I think, of overgrown buildings and, you know, that kind of thing. And I wanted to avoid all of that as much as possible.
Yeah.
And come up with some other image of the past that had collapsed. And I just happened to also be looking at some Bruegel paintings, you know, Peter Bruegel, great painter from 17th century. He was depicting all these humans doing like, you know, crazy things to each other. So I just took some different tableaus from his paintings, and you know, we got the people all dressed up. Their clothes were just covered in layers of flour and dirt and flour and dirt. So it's all really cracking and beautiful. And then I just placed them in these tableaus I would show them the painting, and then they would get in the pose, and then they were amazing at just being completely still. So then they become sort of animated by the flaming torch, you know, as Moon walks around. And I wanted it to be kind of unnerving, you know, that she's an unafraid spectator, you know, she's really courageous, but you can see that she's also like not into it, you know, it's not exciting. It's like kind of horrific. Yeah, I was kind of amazed again at how well they stayed still. You know, they were really like statues, because I didn't really know myself like what this was. Are these actual humans left over from the past, or is this some kind of weird Madden Tussauds that somebody's made as a kind of warning?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Generally, the look of your film, I think the film would not be what it is without the locations that you have found for it. And I was wondering how long it took you to find the places where they did you shoot in a lot of different areas, or was it like in one like general area? Yeah, just a question about locations.
Yeah, I mean, location for me is really important. Like for all my films, really, that it's part of the character of the film. And you know, even if I write something, it only gets fully written once I've found those places. You know, so I have ideas in my head and start writing, but then when I actually then start finding these places, yeah, it sort of starts coming together, and the people, of course. But initially, I was going to make it all in the UK, where I live. But then, actually, the first place that I found was this labyrinth, the one that we were talking about before, which is in Menorca, in the Mediterranean. And so I went there to see the labyrinth, and a very good friend now, he showed me around like lots of other locations in Menorca, like this kind of rocky cove, this huge cave.
The cave is magnificent.
The cave is incredible. Also, this underground, it was an old military complex where these tunnels were, where I had these adult figures. So all these amazing locations in Menorca. So then I thought, okay, I'm going to shoot a lot of it here. And I kind of like this idea that in my head, it was still kind of the UK, but the UK landscape had changed completely and become drier, hotter, you know, more arid. But also, I like the idea that Moon's journey is it's kind of ambiguous. She could be in many places, many countries, and we don't know how long her journey is. And maybe she's going from, it could be 2 years long journey, and we're just seeing bits of it. And
you have some kids speaking in Catalan, right?
Exactly. We've got Catalan. And I was actually hoping there was going to be more languages, but in the end, it's just English and Catalan. And there were some other places where I wanted the landscape to be different and the weather to be different. So then I went to North Wales. Okay. So North Wales also has all these now disused quarries and mines. So these very huge, big, grey, damp landscapes and mist, and so just to mix it up a bit.
Was that where like the big vertical lines crossing the frame?
No, it's really sort of stunning landscape. And so it's really important for me, and it can take months and months to really find the right places and then spend time there and sort of think about how I want to film it, and also and then sort of transforming that in the edit with sound. I mean, I do so much work with the sound, and so like when she's walking through those huge quarries in the North Wales landscape, I really wanted it to sort of feel like the earth is also readjusting, so there's these kind of strange kind of booms and cracks. It's like after all this catastrophe, it's like the earth is also just like stretching itself and settling back down.
It's really immersive, like all of it, the visuals and the sound. And I really have to commend you for that. I think I want to go back to my first question, where you were talking about some Southeast Asian filmmakers or films that you really, really enjoy. And maybe that's a great way to end. Like, maybe talk about some of the films that you really like from this area of the world, and why.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a cinephile. I do watch a lot of films, and I have done for a long time. In my 20s, I ran a cinema for 9 years. So where I saw, I mean, a lot of it was a selfish enterprise because it allowed me to book
this
films.
Podcast is a selfish enterprise.
Right. You got to do it, But I mean, there's a lot. I think most locally, the closest would be Taiwan and Edward Yang. Even though our films are very different, I absolutely love Edward Yang. I mean, it's films like The Terrorizer, for example. It's so fragmentary. It's not. It's incredibly non-linear.
Right.
And yet, by the end of it, exactly where he was
going. We sort of
going.
circle around until we get to something.
It's really fantastic. And then there's other, like, Kid Latahimic, Perfume Nightmare was a huge film for me. I think that was, seeing that
Philippines,
Philippines. He's amazing. And of course, there's a huge Philippine community. There's more like, I guess, like my generation, some a bit older, some a bit younger, but people like Lav Diaz, John Torres, Shireen Seno, these people, I really love their work. And then, don't even get me started on Japanese cinema. I mean, there's so much good stuff. Teshi Gahara is when you think about what I was talking about, like with sound and a film like Woman of the Dunes, where the soundtrack, it plays such a strong part in the film. It's really 50% of the film. What it does to, it's not just emotive like a lot of film soundtrack music, it's just sort of guiding you and telling you how you should feel. This is like kind of getting in deeper into your guts or something. Yeah. So, I could do a whole other podcast probably about like how much I like cinema from Southeast Asia.
That's incredible. Well, maybe for the future we can have you on talking about these films. But thank you once again for joining me for this interview today.
Pleasure.
Once again, thank you so much to Ben Rivers for joining me on the podcast, and thank you to Rainey Tao and Polly Chan from HKIFF team for your help with this interview. And thank you for listening to Deep Cut. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts to help others discover the show. A great way to support us is to leave a review or comment on our episodes directly on Spotify. You can tell us on Spotify if you've seen Mare's Nest. What do you think of this movie? If you want to chat with us and other fans of Deep Cut, come join our Discord server where we talk about movies, TV, music, and share what we're up to. If you'd like to share a message with us or have business inquiries, feel free to drop us an email at hello@deepcutpod.com. We also have a Patreon if you'd like to support us with a monthly subscription. Thank you to all our Patreon supporters. A very special thanks to our Patreon Deep Cut Pick supporter, Leah Lai. You can keep up with Deep Cut on Instagram and Letterboxd at DeepCutPod. Click the link in our description or go to deepcutpod.com to find links to everything we've mentioned here. Deep Cut is hosted and produced by us, Wilson Lai, Benjamin Yap, and Eli Sands. Our cover art is designed by Justina Yam, and our theme song is composed by the one and only Eli Sands. I'm Wilson. Take care, and we're looking forward to talking about more movies with you next time.